This is so weird, Emily. I am in the content marketing world, and this is going to be my first someone interviewing me.
Are you serious?
I'm never the one being grilled.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Saltbox Office Hours. I'm your host, Emily Wood. I recently sat down with the president of the Simons Group, Sandy Asanovic, to get her insights about content marketing. Content is on the brain of many B2B marketers today, and good content is a little bit more elusive than it should be. So I wanted to interview Sandy to get her insights on what makes great content and how to justify the time and money being spent on content. This is a fun and lively conversation, so stick around.
I lead a pretty large team of about 24 creative strategists, writers, designers, and everything that we do for our clients is through a content focused lens. So that's why you're going to be speaking to me about B2B content marketing.
A lot of your clients are in these technical industries like manufacturing. And when people hear like manufacturing, they might assume that the content is dry and overly technical. And I feel like that's a big misconception with B2B as a whole. So I would love your thoughts on just the biggest misconceptions about content.
So what you said is that people do tend to think technical content is dry content. And let's look at just manufacturing for right now. What does a manufacturing company's content have to do? They have to show that they're safety driven, they're efficient, and that they can really handle large projects where their clients have huge investments on the line. So you have to be able to build trust over time with your audience, and you don't really have the marketing fluff. That's
Yeah.
not what you're relying on, because you're speaking to engineers, technical folks, even leadership folks who are very revenue focused. You need to get down to the nitty gritty and need to show them quickly, so they will continue to engage with you, that you have the technical precision, you understand how to solve their high stake problems. A big goal that we always put in place for our technical clients, manufacturing clients, even professional services, is that you need to build your company, your brand, and the experts behind your brand to be considered and regarded as the most reliable experts in the field. So that's where you're really showcasing the humanity of the people behind the manufacturing. So I don't find it boring or dry. I personally think it's super interesting once you get down into it.
It's having that confidence of like, all right, we do need to be more technical because we're speaking our audience's language, and that's how we're going to get credibility.
Definitely, because you really need to show in B2B content marketing in general, you need to show how you think, show how you solve problems. And there's always a place for the more flashy stuff. Let's say you have a product launch or something that you need to grab attention, but once you draw them in, that part is over. You need to like get down to the nitty gritty and how are you going to help them?
I think that's exactly right. And I guess shifting gears a little bit, so your content strategy for like manufacturing, industrial, B2B, professional services too, how would you approach it differently for SaaS or more quote unquote modern, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
B2B brands?
That's a great question. Let's say we're doing the comparison to SaaS, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are SaaS companies known for? They're known for disruption. It's
Mm-hmm.
like things are changing quickly. Those folks need to be the loudest guy in the room, grab the attention because it's moving very quickly. In the manufacturing space, you're still moving quickly, but you're getting noticed, and your customers are trusting you because of your authority in the space. So it's two different ways of looking at how your content marketing needs to be built. In manufacturing, you're not just selling a tool, you're selling a partnership, you're selling your supply chain. It's a different nuance than, oh, sign up for my software product or whatever it may be. And the way that and I don't know if, honestly, I don't know if you really see that in SaaS as much as you do in the fields that we're really deep in, manufacturing and professional services, you really need to showcase the stability of the company, and you need to showcase how deep your institutional knowledge is. And how do you do that? It's by showcasing your experts, showcasing your people, grabbing that knowledge from their brains, and how are we going to package that into a way that's digestible. And the problems that you're solving for your clients are problems that you've solved for other clients of yours. So showcasing your experts and then also showcasing your clients. So then the folks that are on the other end of the computer can see, hey, they've solved this problem for X, Y, and Z. Maybe they can help me. I want to talk to them.
At Saltbox, we work with some pretty technical clients, and that learning curve is always pretty steep. How do you guys go about getting that knowledge? Is it through interviews? Are you regularly meeting with leadership, or is it more kind of the subject matter experts?
So I would say for any client that we're onboarding, let's say, and
Mhm.
let's pretend that we are going to start with a content strategy for them. Our first contact will be whoever is in charge of the content strategy. So it's typically the head of marketing or someone within the marketing department, and really speaking with them not only about their goals as a marketer, but who within their company can help support those goals, and really figuring out who are the experts that you can give us access to. Typically, when we're starting a content strategy process, we could be speaking with a few to even more than that of the experts on their team and really capturing that institutional knowledge from them, guiding them through focused interviews, and really figuring out what are their customers' pain points, how are these experts solving these problems, and then making sure that we're taking all of that and wrapping it into their content strategy. A big mistake that I see happening, and it just happens in the marketing world in general, is people are trying to fill their content calendar, their marketing calendar, and they're just in such a panic to always be visible that they're not taking the time to step back and think, am I leading with a solution? Am I leading with answering my customers' questions? And marketing has a pretty good view on what those questions are, but they don't have the focus that their experts would have. So that's like the thing for me is start with the experts. They need to be involved from the beginning.
That we've talked about this before, where it's kind of like selfish marketing, where you just talk about yourself the whole time and you're not making it customer centric. And so if you involve your subject matter experts, you understand better what the problems are that you need to solve. And then you can create all of your content around that and answering those questions that people have. And then that way the customer just feels seen. If they see the piece of content, they're like, wow, that firm really gets me. They understand what's going on rather than just rambling about themselves.
Definitely, definitely. You have to and like you had mentioned before, we're in the age of AI. Cheap content that sounds great, but maybe isn't saying anything or doesn't set you apart or has no point of view, that's easy to produce. And we're all getting a lot more, you know, when you see it and you're like, oh,
Oh yeah.
this
I'm just
isn't
like,
telling me
come on.
anything. Like next.
I just scroll right on by.
Yeah, exactly. And like even when we worked on paid search, what I loved about you is that you came in and you were like, this is the rules of engagement. And you need to have your content house in order. You need to have your messaging in order, or else this isn't going to work. And you were on the side of, you know what, Sandy, you're not ready yet. We're going to wait. And
Yep.
I kept coming, I kept coming to you, and I'm like, we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. Because we have to support our clients. That is always comes first. And then you have so little time to take care of yourself. And
Hmm.
you were like, we're going to wait to do this right. So you
That's
weren't
the whole
pushing me.
thing. It's like you can't paint the walls if your foundation is crumbling. That's just a waste of time and effort. So
Definitely.
it's worth it just to hold off, get all your ducks in a row, and then start off on the right foot.
Definitely.
And something that we both briefly touched on earlier in this conversation, a lot of brands, it's not a content creation problem. With AI, you can produce so much content, but there's a lot of slop out there. There's a lot
Mhm.
of stuff that just doesn't have a point of view, and it's just clogging up the internet. There's not a lot of value there. How should B2B brands be thinking about how to get the most value from their content marketing investment, whether that's time or money? Like, how should they be thinking about how to prioritize it?
I always say do more with less. I really am a believer in, and this is not a new concept, but building out a content bank around a singular asset or idea. So what we'll do is, and I'm writing a series on this, and it takes our clients and our prospective customers through the journey of how do we approach extracting information from your experts, from like the initial strategy that I spoke about to actually getting down to asset creation, and then how do we be respectful of their time once we've done these interviews with them, that we're not bothering them all the time, and still
Yeah.
feed a 90 to 120-day campaign based on their insights. So I think really, if you're fortunate enough to work for a company or a brand who believes in content marketing, and you want to do like really meaty pieces of content, maybe like research reports or white papers or something that's really showcasing how you solve problems, how you think, where your point of view is within your industry, and taking that and leading with how can I help? Any piece of content that we're creating with and for our clients, we really recommend that it's always solving a problem, always putting the client first, always putting their challenges first, answering their questions. And that also naturally goes hand in hand with the way that people are searching in this new AI GEO world. It
Mm-hmm.
has changed the way that search is working now. So you're really, what I like to tell our clients is that you're not really inherently changing the way that you're expressing how you solve your customers' problems. You're just modifying your content, the content that you're pushing out there through your different channels, to work with how folks are actually looking for firms like you, solutions like you.
When you're having conversations with clients and maybe they're like, okay, what is the role that content should be playing? How do you talk them through that of like how they should view it?
Content today and in the past and in the future, I like to look at it as the content is there when the salesperson isn't in the room, isn't on the phone with them, or before they even know the salesperson. So it's going to be your first point of contact to the outside world so they can begin to learn about your brand and how you solve problems. And then when you go beyond that, you need to go beyond just segmenting your audiences by title. Really go
Mm-hmm.
back and segment them by their pain points. What is giving them stress and anxiety in their day-to-day work world, and how can you help them? And then also, a lot of times, just because budgets are small or time is lacking and you have so much to do, a lot of companies will try to have assets that do everything for everybody. And you can't speak to everyone with just one asset. You have to tailor the depth of whatever that piece of content is to the role that is going to be taking that content and digesting it. If you're speaking to an operator or an engineer, you need to get to the technical data that they need quickly. If you're speaking to an executive, you need to get the high level strategic outcomes front and center for them. Combining those two and making it sloppy because you need to speak to both audiences, you're going to end up putting both audiences off because they're going to see you're making me dig. Don't make me dig.
Don't make me dig. And then also, you didn't do your homework about me. I'm not going to spend time on the content that you made. That was a waste of both time and money with the limited resources that you have. So it's better just to, again, set up that foundation, do it right the first time. It might take a little bit longer, might be a little bit harder, but ultimately it's going to work a lot better for you in the long run, too.
Yeah, and I'm not telling anyone to bite off more that they can than they can chew. Just do what you can, but do it really well. Let's say you're starting a content strategy for your brand, and you're like, where do I start? And a lot of folks will make the mistake of jumping in and doing everything. And I'm going to get on YouTube. I'm going to get on LinkedIn. I'm going to do a bunch of advertising. I'm going to, whatever it may be, they're going to jump in head first and try to do everything at once. I always say, figure out, okay, so how are you currently speaking with your clients? How are they currently engaging with you? Lean into that first. Test that out. See if you can get it to grow. Maybe you can start focusing on your current clients because once you're working with someone, it's easier to continue working with them. They already trust you. Maybe that could be your first line. And then with that, you're also going to learn about the folks that have already hired you. What are they interested in? Your prospects are going to probably be interested in the same thing. And then you can slowly start scaling that up. But I always, when we start with a new client, a lot of agencies I feel will be on the side of house where, oh, let's take $250,000 from this company. Let's dive in and like just like start going. And I'm like, no, we need to start small.
Mm-hmm.
And typically that'll be with a content strategy exercise where it's you're really learning about them, you're learning about their customers, you're learning from their experts directly, and then you're crafting a plan that you can start help them execute typically slowly because you want to start testing things.
How do you build credibility with a technical audience that might be more skeptical, who are allergic to the marketing fluff?
I was speaking with a manufacturer who is having this problem right now, and his marketing folks throughout the years, his internal folks, agency folks, they kept telling him, we need more content. So what they did was they went on their website and they kept bloating the website up with really educational content that their audience didn't need because their audience knows everything and even more so than the manufacturer does about their own business. And them coming in from a place of dumbing it down and explaining things to them in an
Like
elementary
explaining
way.
the 101, and it's like they don't need that.
Exactly. Exactly. Our solution to him was you need to, we really need to cull everything down. We need to get back down to basics and we need to, for them, they were pretty lucky. They just had one audience. They were very niche, had one audience, and their audience was coming to them from two different avenues, and they just had to go down this road or that road. So, really figuring out what each of them needed and only giving them that. And a lot of times, not everybody needs a full blown content strategy. They don't.
That's a good point.
And for
That's a
them,
good
we did
point.
not recommend that. We did recommend we need to speak with your experts in house to figure out what are these two folks down on the path that we need to write content for. What are their problems and how can we help them solve their problems quickly on your website? But for them in particular, they were so niche and so in demand already because only a couple companies in their industry do what they do. So with that, it's like just show them quickly that you understand them. For a technical audience, they may be looking for CAD drawings or blueprints or whatever it may be. Give it to them outright. Don't lock stuff away behind gates and stuff in that
I was
particular
gonna
instance.
ask, what is your thought process and your philosophy on gated content?
It depends on how you're getting folks into your audience. So you can, a lot of our B2B clients in the professional services space, their companies are built on relationships. They could have hundreds of partners or experts on their team, and those folks are bringing their client base with them, or they have their own client bases developed. They're not going to be getting clients from website. So for them, they don't really have to gate their content because their goal is potentially not to grow their email database. They already have their email database. But let's say you are in a more technical manufacturing space and you have, maybe you do an industry report annually, and you're interviewing or getting survey data from your audience members, which would find this data to be pretty important. Those folks, especially in manufacturing, you have to constantly be getting leads in and transferring to sales. So for them, you should gate your really high value content. But a lot of companies fall into this horrible gray area where they think they have to just start gating everything just because they're desperate to get folks into their net. But then you end up
Just turning everybody off.
Yeah, yeah. And even if they get into your net, they're going to already be turned off by you, that they're going to be less inclined to engage with your messaging and whatever content you're feeding them through whatever it may be, email marketing, etc. And they're probably already going to move on to the next because you've already established that you're hard to work with.
So I guess maybe if brands were listening and they're like, okay, how am I going to prioritize it? Are you saying big industry report, maybe gate that, but then smaller assets, maybe it's just a white paper, a couple pages, like a quarterly report, maybe it's not as in depth, maybe ungate that so that people can start to understand what you're about, your content, your point of view. Then if they want the big meaty thing, they're like, all right, I'll fill out a form for that.
I trust you already.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what you said about, okay, let's keep the quarterly insights free, lack of a better term, and then you're building up to whatever that annual piece is that you're going to be releasing every year, like
Love it.
the big piece of the pie. So, yeah, you really need to play the long game. And I think that's also where a lot of content marketing will fall apart. And that, again, from the past to today and into the future, people are always expecting fast, fast, fast. You don't build trust quickly. And you have to be steady and consistent with it.
What are some common pitfalls that you see with the content strategy as you start to work with new clients?
We touched on this already, that you need to resist the temptation to do everything at once. You need to start small and stay focused, which is the total opposite of what a lot of people were taught traditionally to do. And I think that instead of spreading yourself thin across 10 different channels, you need to pick one high value area and then also select what experts internally are going to help support that high value messaging, problem solving approach, or whatever it may be that you want to highlight in your content marketing. And you need to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight. And I know everything that you do costs money. And marketers and CMOs, you become afraid this isn't working. And how am I going to justify this to the higher ups? And I think one of the things that I've seen work well is marketing leaders need to get at the table and start talking about how they're not a cost center, how they are helping drive revenue, and not being afraid to have those conversations and not being afraid to even talk with leadership about, okay, so maybe this isn't working right now. These are the adjustments that we're making so they can see you're not just trying to do a set it and forget it thing, and you and your team are really thinking about things through. We've gone through this year, we've had a ton of product launches, and one of the launches, the audience maybe wasn't the best fit for the product that they were launching. So a lot of the things weren't happening the way that we thought they were going to happen, the way the client thought they were going to happen. But what we had to do is really take a step back and say, hey, how can we fix this? Let's not go steaming ahead. Let's put a little hold on it, see what can be fixed, see how we can tweak the audience, whatever tweaks we need to make this successful. But you can't do that unless you have trust with your marketing agency and that the client has trust with their leadership team. And that's on the marketer. That's on who's ever in charge of marketing internally to build that trust on both sides.
That's a really good point. Oftentimes, marketers are just like, leadership just doesn't understand, and they just leave it at that. But especially if maybe you're the CMO, it is your job to have those conversations. And if the CEO doesn't understand the value of marketing, unfortunately, education is kind of part of your job description then, because
Yeah.
there's no way that you're going to get budgets approved if the CEO and everybody else doesn't understand the value of what your department is producing. So you have to put yourself in their shoes, understand the value that your team is driving, which then also requires you to get a little bit maybe closer to the action of what's going on so that you can speak to it. And it's really hard to stand up and say, hey, maybe there's not a ton of attributable revenue directly to this channel, but it's acting as a support for things that are getting people to convert. Not really sure if there's a question there, but basically, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and right now, the leadership series that I've been producing this year based on how to get expert insights for your strategy, for your content creation, my final piece of the series is ROI. And one of the
Nice.
things that I really want to help our customers and just folks that are in our audience is really figure out how can we validate that the time that we're taking from our experts, and experts are typically really highly billable. They could be billing at $500 to $2,000 an hour. And if you're taking time away from them to to do marketing, to write a blog, to write an article, whatever it is you're asking them to do, which they shouldn't be doing, how can we showcase that, hey, we have spent, let's say, 2 hours of time with an expert, and we've been able to feed 90 days of content marketing. And then where are those pieces within your campaign mix? How can we attribute that, exactly what you were saying, tie it back in some way to revenue, tie it back into creating sales qualified leads? It's figuring out ways to show that you're moving the needle and ultimately having a place at the table where you are tying that back to revenue that's coming in.
Mhm.
And then I really am a big believer in really taking care of your clients and nurturing your clients, even more so than your prospects and people who don't actually
Yep.
know you yet. And some might not agree with me, but that's how I personally like to do business.
Yeah.
And if you can tie back how folks are interacting with content that maybe are already your customers, and how long are you retaining these customers? Is it longer than previously before, maybe when you weren't doing this sort of outreach to them? I know even for myself, if I'm really invested in a brand's content, and kind of like when you and I started working together, I didn't know you. I just got drawn into you via LinkedIn because of your content. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, wow, this Emily person really
She knows what she's talking
understands.
about.
Yeah, she understands my problems. And when I was ready to go, who did I reach out to? And the only way that at scale that you're going to be able to stay engaged with your customers or your prospects is through speaking to them via content. It can be videos, it can be social, it can be white papers, it can be email, it can be a bunch of things, but you need to figure out, how am I going to stay engaged with these folks and make them feel, because you are doing these things at scale, but really make them feel like they're heard and listened to. And you and I spoke about this last year when everyone saw the AI train coming and we're like, oh. And you and I were both on the side of house that eventually people are going to have to shift back to human first content. And I know we had this discussion, and it's happening because people trust other people. And
Yep.
what is the skill that AI is not going to be able to take away from us as humans. It's the human to human interaction, the human
And we're
approach to
social
solving problems.
creatures too.
Yeah.
And it's like we that's why we still trust recommendations from other people. I think people crave real points of view, real
Mhm.
voices, real human connection, even with day to day, but also with making large business decisions. If you feel that you can trust somebody and that you're resonating with what they're saying, you've got a much better leg up than somebody posting 5 times a day and it's not really saying anything.
Yeah, definitely.
I know we are almost out of time, but the last question I have, and I think you've done a good job of peppering us with the information, but what is the process like of working with the Simons Group to get a content strategy? It sounds like it's getting a handle on who the subject matter experts are, getting interviews. That seems to be a core part of it, which I think is really smart.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have the Simons Group was built. We're like 45 years old now. We've gone through it all. I've been here for almost 20 years. Our senior editor, who's in charge of our content team, she's a journalist by training, and just the writers that we have on our team and the content strategists that we have on our team, they're all trained in asking questions.
That's
And
awesome.
it's a skill,
Hmm?
not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but thankfully now with AI, you're hosting these interviews with numerous different people from different parts of the company. And one of my like favorite things about AI now is that as long as it's secure, whatever tool that you're using, and that it's not going to get out there, like feeding in the information that you're getting from these interviews, the transcripts, so on and so forth, and helping validate your core assumptions. So after you go through those interviews, you're going to already have, oh, these are the themes that keep coming up. These are the
Hmm.
business challenges that keep coming up. And figuring out how are we going to tie that into their content strategy and into their messaging, even into their visuals. And having AI as your partner to validate and test are like, was I hearing this correctly? Are these themes truly weaving through all of these interviews with the experts, so on and so forth?
Thank you so much, Sandy. This was awesome. I really appreciate your time.
When are we going to do it again?
I know, anytime, come back. I have so many more questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks for joining me for Saltbox Office Hours. For more marketing conversations worth having, subscribe to our YouTube channel.